Almost all third-generation Kia Optima that drive on the roads of our countries are equipped with inline-4 petrol engines with distributed injection. Opinions about them are very different, and the statistics are even frightening. And that's what it's all about. 2.0 MPI 150 horsepower G4 KD, 2.0 MPI 150 horsepower G4 ND. The base engines of the Kia Optima are 2-liter naturally aspirated 4s with distributed injection. There are two such motors. G4 KD is an older unit of the Theta 2 family, and G4 ND is of the new family. It can be identified by the abbreviation CVVL printed on the decorative cover. These engines have aluminum cylinder blocks and a timing chain drive. The newer G4 ND has hydraulic compensators and is equipped with a system for changing valve lift height, the same CVVL. True, until 2017, new series engines did not have oil nozzles. These engines are considered less strong in terms of iron than the 2.4-liter. The main fears are scuffing on the surface of the cylinders. Although 2-liter engines are different, they have the same problems, associated precisely with the appearance of severe wear of the cylinder piston group. However, everything is not so simple. These motors can literally be loved, and then troubles happen. You need to use the right thin oil, i.e. with viscosity 0 watts -20 or 0 watts -30. You should not heat the oil while idling. We start the engine and drive slowly, begin to actively push the pedal when the engine temperature rises. And you shouldn't overuse the grills and the bumper. Because of this little thing, the engine will operate in a more severe temperature regime. Scuffing immediately appears even after the destruction of the ceramic converter. Its dust gets into the cylinders and it is rubbed by the pistons. Again, the converter dies due to bad gasoline. If the owners do not abuse maintenance, then both 2-liter engines last more than 300,000 kilometers, and nothing happens to their CPG. True, with a mileage of about 170,000 kilometers, the timing chains will have to be replaced. They are different for 2-liter engines of the Theta 2 and new series, 24,321 to 25,002 43212 E380, which is not surprising. Let us also remember that until 2014, G4 ND motors also rotated the bearings. The factory updated the connecting rod bearings 235,102 E1 or 235,102 E51. To ensure this problem no longer occurs. 2.4 MPI 180 horsepower G4K, 2.4 GDI 188 horsepower G4 KJ. The 2.4-liter engines of this Kia Optima were first with distributed injection, and then with direct injection. It was the first ones who became famous for turning the connecting rod bearings, usually of the third cylinder, and lifting the corresponding crankshaft journals. This is all usually inherent in G4K motors, i.e. with distributed injection, produced before the 2015 model year. By the way, it is precisely this kind of engine under the hood of this car. According to the VIN number, the same connecting rod bearings, 230602 G400, are identified, which are considered unsuccessful, but nothing like that, namely rotation of the bearings, did not happen with this engine. And in general, with normal careful maintenance, nothing turns over on these engines. This engine does not consume oil, the level never changes from replacement to replacement. Although, again, quite a few of these engines consume oil due to stuck compression rings. Again, these are all the results of operation. When the oil is changed at intervals of more than 15,000 kilometers and it is not clear what is being poured, the 2.4 GDI engine differs from the MPI in the blockhead for direct fuel injection into the cylinders. As you understand, the injectors are installed directly into the cylinder head, in principle. This is an absolutely normal engine. All that kills it is inadequate maintenance and oil of dubious quality. And 90-second gasoline provokes premature death of the fuel injection pump. 35,320 to 2 GGA0, average over 80,000 kilometers. A high-pressure fuel pump for a GDI engine costs about $350. There are no hydraulic compensators in the valve drive of these engines, but usually adjusting the gaps does not require very long if the engine is powered only by gasoline. And the timing chain easily runs more than 400,000 kilometers. You're wondering if this engine has been repaired for almost 350,000 kilometers? We'll tell you about this soon. 2.0 T-GDI 245 horsepower, 271 horsepower G4KH, the 2-liter turbo engine, as we have already noted, went to the Kia Optima for the US market, plus there was also a similar version in Korea, the K5 Turbo. Again, a turbo engine is not anything terrible or troublesome. It also belongs to the Theta 2 family and during normal maintenance nothing happens to it. 1.7 CRDI 136 horsepower D4 FD. European Kia Optima are equipped with a proprietary 1.7-liter turbo diesel. He doesn't stand out in anything special and has no systematic weaknesses. Everything is standard, the fuel system from Bosch is reliable and repairable, the EGR valve will need to be cleaned after 200,000 kilometers, and with it almost the entire intake tracked. And here we also repeat, we don't skimp on oil. In addition, the Kia Optima became a hybrid in this generation. Depending on the market, the East or the USA, the hybrid power plant can be based on either a 2-liter new series engine or a 2.4-liter Theta 2 family. 6-street manual transmission M6 CF3. Kia Optima with 2-liter engines could be ordered with a 6-speed mechanics. And this is far from the most successful Korean M6 CF3 gearbox. Before 2017, it often crunched and was reluctant to engage third gear due to the plastic third gear locking ring. Therefore, this transmission was often sent for overhaul after a mileage of 150,000 kilometers. The service life is the same and even more modest for the release bearing and rocker cables. Automatic transmission, 6-street automatic transmission A6 MF1/A6 LF1. With a 6-speed automatic transmission there are much fewer problems, although this transmission got rid of its inherent weaknesses until 2013. In practice, it turns out that all automatic transmissions on the Optima have either been repaired or have already left the assembly line with the defects eliminated. True, their differential is rather weak, but this applies to all-wheel drive crossovers that use exactly the same automatic transmission. In the case of a single drive, breakage of the differential housing splines can be achieved as a result of long slips. In case of major problems, errors in the electrical components of this transmission appear due to the ATF temperature sensor and due to the electrical wiring harness. The transmission of versions with a 2.0 turbo engine deserves special mention. The differential of such machines as well as the intermediate shaft, 49560D4350, and the right drive, 49501D4250, may be left without splines. The differential splines leave the chat due to overly active acceleration with crazy slipping. The drive splines simply rust into dust. The fact is that on the right side of the intermediate shaft there is a steel rim similar to an oil seal. It simply becomes deformed, bends, and then moisture from the road begins to fly under it. As a result, the external splines on this shaft and the internal ones in the right drive corrode. They must be treated with a lubricant that will protect against corrosion. There are often complaints about the Kia Optima steering rack. It starts to knock. There is play in the rack itself, i.e. gear shaft. On many Optimas, the steering rack was replaced under warranty, and its electric motor was also replaced due to bearing wear. Surprisingly today, without problems or on order with a short waiting period, you can buy a completely new and original steering rack for $230 to $260, 5650002T100XXF. In general, the steering rack is completely repairable. Usually the bushings along which the shaft slides simply wear out. Of course, everything can be worse if water and dirt get inside through torn anthers. The Kia Optima's suspension is generally very durable. And this particular car confirms this statement. Here we had to change the front springs because one of them burst recently. At 320,000 kilometers, everything else is still factory. This happens if the owner drives carefully and the roads are generally smooth. The struts, 54840C1000, of the front stabilizer here were replaced twice in 10 years. Let us remind you. Original stands sell for $22. Front suspension arms, 54501C1000, can be purchased assembled, because the price for the original is not bad, about $120. Or you can buy original silent blocks, 54551C1000, 54584C1000, they cost $6 to $9. Bolt-on ball joints, 54530C1100, are easy to replace and original ones cost about $35. The ball joints on this car were replaced once. The silent blocks have not yet been changed either front or rear. The front shock absorbers, but only the front ones, had to be replaced at 300,000 kilometers because they started knocking. Original front, 54660D4590, shock absorber struts cost about $180, and there are very few analog replacements. Today there are only $60 options, and they are not impressive in quality. One of the front springs broke at 320,000 kilometers. Around this time, both front wheel bearings began to hum synchronously and were replaced. Original hubs, 51750C1000, today sell for $170, and high-quality replacements are not much cheaper. Everything in the rear suspension is original silent blocks, springs and shock absorbers. I only had to change the camber bolts, 55260C1000, which were severely soured, because The rear suspension has not required any attention or adjustment of the wheel alignment angles for years. As you can see, there are 4 levers for each wheel. Literally all original silent blocks can be purchased separately. The original silent blocks at the bottom of the trunnions, 551304D000 and 5274OC1100, cost $15 to $20. Hefty front trailing arm bushings, 5529OC2200, will cost $80. All other silent blocks for wishbones cost $15 to $25. The mileage of this Kia Optima today is 345,000 kilometers. The car was released in March 2013 in the maximum configuration for pre-restyling. It was purchased from a Kia dealer with 13,000 kilometers mileage from a test fleet. Since then the owner has not changed. So, what had to be changed and repaired in it? The first breakdown was repaired under warranty by a dealer in Smolensk. At 120,000 kilometers the first lambda probe was replaced, and on the same day the decorative trims between the rearmost side windows and door windows were replaced. Corrosion appeared on them and the coating began to peel off. As you can see today they again do not look very neat. They acquired this appearance over 240,000 kilometers. Let's move on to the engine. Up to 300,000 kilometers, the owner changed the oil every 15,000 kilometers, now he changes it every 10,000 kilometers. Motor oil with a viscosity of 5 watts minus 30. The brand of oil has been the same all these years, and it is not widely known. We will not name it. Let us hint that the oil the owner uses is bottled in Poland. Naturally, filters and spark plugs are replaced. Fuel is only AI-95 gasoline. And what results did this lead to? At about 320,000 kilometers, the generator was repaired. This is all. Nothing else was repaired under the hood. The motor is original, with the original chain. The catalyst is from the factory, that is, in place and not cut out. Separately, we note that there is no mesh in the air intake in front of the radiator. And the owner never warms up the engine before a trip. He starts it and immediately drives slowly. The owner changed the automatic transmission oil once, at 120,000 kilometers. He wants to change it again. There are no complaints at all about the operation of the automatic machine. About 2 years ago, the fuel tank started to dig up. It is plastic and was worn out by sand and dirt, which had accumulated under one of the steel belts on which it hangs. The tank was repaired in a specialized workshop, and it has not leaked since then. Today the rear cans of the muffler look unimportant. They are corroded, but not completely corroded yet. They will probably need to be replaced within the next year. Let's start with the body. And here Optima is in perfect order. In general, this car is in its original paint. Not a single body element has been painted. There is one chip on the hood that appeared literally within the first 10,000 kilometers. As you can see, the paint around it swells minimally. The rest of the chips look just fine. In general, the Kia Optima is painted well. The metal is well prepared for painting. True, there are exclusive complaints about white cars. The paint on the rear bumper is peeling off along the junction with the fender. Note that this particular car is developing corrosion on the trunk lid in a place familiar to many models, around the trunk lock button. Pay attention to the mixed color wheels. Today they look like new because a year ago the owner bought new original wheels. Before this the car ran on exactly the same wheels. But over time, all their beauty literally swelled and began to crumble. As it turned out, restoring their beauty, i.e. painting the front side and grinding it, will cost more than buying new discs. The xenon headlights are original. The bulbs in them had to be changed once. The problem with peeling off the mirror coating on the lens reflectors is typical for Optima headlights. Typically, headlights go blind after a mileage of 300,000 kilometers. Here the low beam is still not bad, but it still hints that something needs to be done, either change the headlights, or restore the reflectors, or install new lenses and reflectors. Moisture gets into the taillights of some cars, which has a very bad effect on the health of the LEDs. They light up the light strips. Due to moisture, the tracks on which the LEDs are wired corrode, and they themselves burn out. All this can be restored, but you will have to search for LEDs for a long time or take them from a donor flashlight. A common problem with Kia Optima is that the trapezoidal wiper hinges become sour. Therefore, the windshield wipers begin to stick or even jam. Traction, i.e. the trapezoid itself without a motor, can be purchased separately. 9812002T000 for $80. In this generation, the interior of the Kia Optima acquired a character that vaguely resembles something German from VAG. Actually, you can feel the hand of Peter Schreier, who by 2010 tidied up the Kia design. The interior is made from quality, durable materials and looks and feels better than a Camry of the same era. True, often the steering wheel braid is not only polished, but even its top layer is peeled off. This cosmetic defect can be solved inexpensively in a workshop where the braid is changed. There are rare cases of incorrect operation of the buttons on the right side of the steering wheel. In this case, you will need to remove the steering wheel, disassemble and remove the buttons, and clean the contacts under them. Optima has no electrical problems. Very rarely do problems occur with the mechanisms for folding and adjusting mirrors, and this is only due to dirt and moisture getting in there. Due to moisture and subsequent corrosion, the rear view camera dies. The heated seats work for a long time, the multimedia does not glitch. Everything else is the same as other cars. That is, at high mileage the heater fan may creak, and there may be problems with the climate control dampers. By the way, the climate control unit can perform diagnostics. To do this, turn on the ignition, hold down the off button on the climate control unit and simultaneously press the right side, with the up arrow, of the mode button 5 times. The system will diagnose itself and give you an error number in the form of a 2-digit number. Their decoding is available on the internet. Zeros mean that there are no climate errors. Among the electrics in this car, one of the climate control dampers required attention because the air temperature in the right air ducts was not regulated. Now one of the parking sensors in the rear bumper is not working.